Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Mithali and I'm a fellow at Wadia Hospital, and I'll be talking today about how to make an effective PowerPoint presentation. Starting from our UG days till our PG and then now super specialization, PowerPoint presentation has become an important tool in teaching as well as to drive across our message clearly when presenting numerous things like research article. So we are going to have a look about how we can make the PowerPoint presentation more effective and drive across the point more clearly. The objectives of this presentation is why is an effective PowerPoint presentation needed, basic principles of slide designing, basic etiquettes of presentation, tips for an impactful presentation. So we are loaded with a large amount of information from textbooks to research articles on a specific topic. So the PowerPoint presentation will help in bringing the entire information into a focus point so that the information is crisp and clear when presenting and communicating the message better. For an impactful beginning, first slide should make an impactful presentation. First, we need to paint the entire background, define things well, use a study board when needed so as there is a flow in the entire presentation, use narrative or historical aspects to make it more interesting, and there should be specific learning objective in each presentation. The first slide itself should capture the audience. The basic principles of effective slide designing include segmenting, multimedia, coherence, redundancy, signaling, and contiguity principles. Each of this will be discussed in detail later. The segmenting principle talks about breaking down the entire presentation into numerous segments, like the background or the introduction, then to focus on the topic which we are to present, end with a conclusion or a summary or a take-home message or reflections. Towards the end of it, give references, tell about further readings which can be done on the same topic. Whenever possible, add a quiz or a poll to the presentation so that we can know how much the audience has been able to understand what we are trying to present. The multimedia principle says that not only text, but when text used with images helps to drive across the message more clearly and will help in better understanding of the content that we are trying to say. However, whenever using text with images, avoid making a slide like this, where an entire content has been copied or pasted from an article or a textbook. This will just make the slide boring. The basic rule of a PowerPoint presentation is the rule of 6, which is one idea per entire slide, 6 lines per slide, and 6 words per line. However, 155, 177, and 188 are also commonly used. This will help to simplify the slide and drive across the message clearly. Whenever making the slide, there should be enough spacing between the lines. 1.5 to 2 is adequate spacing. The slide should be symmetrical with equal margins on both sides, and it should be clear and readable. To have a clear and readable slides, Time New Roman and German are the commonly used texts for text. Verdana, Arial, Calibri, and Tahoma are the clearly used fonts for headings. However, try to avoid fancy fonts like these, which just look fancy, but they are very difficult to read for the audience. So the size of the font that is to be used is 72, as you can see, is too big, and one would see that it would cover a large amount of space in the entire slide. At the same time, size 12 is a font which is extremely small and the audience would possibly require a microscope to read it. So the ideal text sizes for title 13 to 40. For text, it should be 18 to 24. For references, it should be 12 to 40. However, whenever adding text to the slide, avoid all capitals. The text and the background should have contrast with one another. When using a light background, the text should be dark, or when using a dark background, the text should be light. Similarly, when presenting in a room which has a lot of light, try and use dark contrast lights and vice versa. Text alignment. Preferable is left text alignment because it is very clear to read and easy for the audience. Centered and right-sided texts are more difficult to read and should be avoided. When emphasizing important points in a slide, highlighting using bold, different colors, underline, different fonts, and italics can be done. This will help the audience focus on those important points. And this is in accordance to the signaling principle. However, multiple things like highlighting and bold should not be used at the same time. The coherence principle says that pictures should be used only when they are important and necessary, and it will help to limit the cognitive load on the learners, which is based on the limited capacity assumption of the cognitive theory. Images, when they used, JPEG is the ideal format in which images are to be used. GIF can be limited to logos or line arts or images with limited color. As you can see from the picture below, higher the resolution of the image, better is the image. 100 dpi and more is the preferred size for image when used in a presentation. Images should also be placed correctly. They should be centered. The image should be clear, properly aligned, and equally margined. It should be coherent with the text, and whenever necessary, embedding should be done. This is in accordance with the contiguity principle. The contiguity principle says that images with text helps in enhanced learning. There should be spatial contiguity. That is, the image should be closer to the text which it is depicting. Also, according to the temporal contiguity, the image and the text should not be on different slides. Contiguity principle says that imaging and text, when used clearly, helps in active processing of the information. Screenshots. Whenever screenshots are taken from research articles like this one has been, they should first be enhanced, made big, and only then pasted in the slide. Otherwise, they just become very cluttered and extremely difficult to read. The audience will get irritated when asked to interpret a screenshot like this, as irritated our newborns are when they are kept NBM. In screenshots, multiple columns will be there. However, only a few will be important enough for the audience to have a look and interpret. So the ones which are important should be highlighted and should be focused upon. The redundancy principle talks about using animations along with the text. So animations with narrations helps in driving across the message more clearly. However, when using animation, there should be less text, or else the text and the animation will compete with each other for visual channel. Animation, however, is a double-edged sword. Too much animation is bad. It distracts the audience. Hence, it should be only limited to a couple of slides. It should only be allowed to appear, and a lot of fancy animation should not be used together for the same text. And sound is equally distracting when used. Animation, when used correctly, helps in driving across the message easily, like the direction in which the catheters can be seen in this, along with the direction of the blood flow. This will help in better understanding and will be more clearer to the audience about what the point is being made. Using infographics in slides. Using infographics like smart art helps in making good slides, which will make an effective presentation, and it will have a better impact on the audience. So a slide should have a headline which is clear and brief. It should have few bullet points in accordance to the 166 principle, which we have already talked about. The image or the smart art which is included in the slide should be self-explanatory and should not require a detailed narration and explanation. That's it. Nothing more than this should be there in your slide. Like you can see, this slide has too much going on for itself. A lot of information has been tried to cover in this simple slide, where there is a lot of information in the form of text as well as images. Such images are difficult to comprehend for the audience, and this is what is famously described as death by PowerPoint. Clearly, this is not what we aim to achieve, and hence such slides should not be made. Videos. When adding videos to a PowerPoint presentation, they make the entire presentation more impactful and interesting. However, these videos should not be hyperlinked because hyperlinking videos can sometimes cause issues with the net and more difficulty in playing. Replay the videos before your presentation to make sure that they are working. Hyperlinking is adding documents, either files, videos, or images, either from the net or from your own laptop to a presentation so that you can directly click on it and then view the entire text. Like here, where we have hyperlinked this file and it can now be easily visible to the audience. So for a PowerPoint presentation to be effective, the entire presentation should be limited to 10 slides. The entire talk should be limited to 20 minutes and 30 is the font size that is to be used. Excessive slides will just bore the audience and they will lose their interest. Time is extremely important. One must stick to the allotted time that they have been given so that the presentation is effective, point is driven across, as well as the audience is occupied throughout the presentation. 45 minutes is the time during which an audience will be active and focused during a presentation. So try and limit the presentation to 45 minutes and always leave time for discussion. The end 10 to 15 minutes should be there for discussion. Whenever possible, one should create their own templates using logos and pictures and copyright. They should have their name and date in the template. For an impactful and effective presentation, one must know their audience, identify the important points in the entire presentation and keep repeating them through the presentation. There should be a flow of the entire presentation and it should go smoothly. To have this, one can use a study board or a slide sorter. Less slides for complex topics are effective, and include quizzes or polls towards the end to understand how much the audience has understood. How the presenter presents the presentation is equally important. One should present with passion and enthusiasm, should have a stage presence, use humor and narrative whenever possible, control of speech and eye contact. However, this will be talked about in detail in the subsequent session. For a smooth presentation, the PowerPoint that one is presenting should be stored at multiple places. One should mail it to their counterparts as well, so that last-minute glitches can be easily avoided. One should know their device carefully and should be able to troubleshoot when necessary. Carry your own pointer because pointing at important things could actually be more effective. There should be a compatibility pre-check before the presentation starts and be tag savvy. Always add references towards the end of the session.
Mithali, just to interrupt you, skip this slide. Mithali, just show your take home messages slide.
That is what I'm. So one must keep the audience focused, tell them what you're going to tell them during the entire presentation, and then tell them what you have told them by summarizing. So there should be an introduction, there should be a summary afterwards, use phrases like in conclusion or to summarize, and there should be comprehensiveness throughout the presentation. The take-home message is less is more. Remember the 10, 20, and the 30 rule that we have discussed. Have a cognitive plan before starting your presentation. 6 basic principles of slide designing are to be followed. Keep the slides simple and readable. Use simple visuals. Rehearse multiple times before your presentation. Towards the end of the presentation, always include references as well as multiple articles which the audience can go back and read. Always acknowledge everyone who has helped you in making the presentation and along with your audience and your colleagues. So now we'll have a look at this slide, and I would request somebody from the audience to tell us what all is going wrong with this slide. Okay, so
You can type in text box.
Can type and unmute also. See.
Residents are please requested to comment on this slide.
In the light color.
First of all, the heading, the first thing, the let's see the part is
It's a
light.
light color.
That is we should not use. The second thing is the photo, the image. The image that is being used is not centered properly and it is partly missing. And the area of focus is not clear. The third statement is everything correct? That statement, the spelling mistake, as well as underlining it as is making it very much prominent, and that is focusing. Too much of texting has been used. One is capitalization, second is exclamation. So a lot of confusion on the text is available.
yes, yes. So I think we've been able to drive across the message clearly. Thank you.